Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Northman. So I love Alexander Skarsgard as much as probably the next person. I enjoyed him in Mute, or I enjoyed him in Tarzan, and so I was like, well, if anything, like, Alexander is going to be great in this film, but, like, is anything else going to add up to Alexander? Well, we'll find out. So, The Northman is to take like this slow build of a revenge movie and is to also add so many like supernatural he witch seeresses and all this kind of like you can't just go on and take a sword from a corpse. Oh no, like you have to go on and do more than that. And so a lot of that kind of supernatural stuff that I just mentioned isn't exactly doing this movie any favors because I just find it just to be bizarre. We have a lot of like hallucinating ritual moments to, I guess, get Emleth into possibly like a coming of age kind of thing where his father is going to like hand him the sword, so to speak. And we have a bizarrish ritual of that. And then we also go on, and when Emleth is to group up with these berserkers, they also have this weird bizarrish ritual that they also have to do before they are to go on and do what they do in this film, which honestly is the most interesting thing about this film, besides the really bigger battles that are to really just kind of happen at the end, or are to really just kind of like be this kind of build of something. And I feel like everyone else is just like everyone else is kind of there. There's some bizarre things that Nicole Kidman does in this movie. When she actually does things. Because she's like, most of the movie, she's just there. But when we get towards the end of the film, it's like, okay, what a drastic change for this woman to have finally had something to actually say in this film. And when she actually goes on and has this stretch of dialogue that she delivers, we're like, holy like, dang, woman, just take that knife, stab him into the heart, and then just start twisting around. And like, yeah, so Nicole Kidman does have like a string of dialogue somewhere in this film into the much later part of it, but like, yeah, like at this point I would deem this movie to just be like a bizarre film that has some slivers of interesting things in it, but I would probably, instead of having people go on and pay for this premium access and spend $14.99 or whatever it ends up being at some point, I'm hoping it's at a certain part that this movie just goes into a streaming thing somewhere. Because I would much rather like justify that to just go into some streaming and then go on and have a following be done that way. Even though, again, the people that did the movie won't get their money, but still, like, The Northman, like, is a movie that I wouldn't recommend to people. And so, like, for anyone who is to actually see the film, I don't know if there's really is a positive review. Because there's just sliver of good things out of this movie, and it's not good as a whole. It's just a slow slog of a film, and you're wanting certain characters to be in here longer within this movie. Like, the guy who ends up playing the brotherless, the Fajolnior, hopefully that's ballparkingly somewhere close. I saw that guy on Dracula, so I was like, oh, like, man, like, this cast looks really good. I really liked everybody in this cast, but it's just like nobody really had enough of anything really to do in this movie. There wasn't enough time to marinate on anybody besides Amleth, the Alexander Skarsgard character. So with that said, let's go into where can you go and watch this for free, honestly, if you don't want to go on and premium access this and whichever. So I have a number of apps that I've used over time. I'm not quite sure if you're easily able to go on and find these and whatever, but I'm just going to keep recommending them anyways. So with that said, you can go onto a Google search and search the word Letter C Movies app. Hopefully you can there, in fact, after searching this, you can go and find an app you can download and, be able to see this movie for absolutely free. Because a lot of times there is a lot of premium access stuff on there. There's a lot of exclusive app stuff that you would only be able to see on stuff like Cinemax or Stars or by and large any app that would normally just have their own exclusive thing that only you would have to subscribe to justifiably see certain movies. You can go on to another Google search and search the word Fox HD Movies. Regardless of what I say, just search for those words because you'll find an app, hopefully, that is to have the logo of Fox HD Movies, but a title that says something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD Movies, and at the end of the day, hopefully you can save, you can see that app. And that also, with both those apps combined together, you can pretty much see whatever you want. There's a lot of times, if it's not on Letter C Movies, it's on that one. So that's why I recommend both of them. If you can go ahead and find them somehow. Or you can also go on, and I think they have the bootleg version of this currently available on this app right now, but eventually it'll probably transition over. You can go onto a Google Play Store and search the word TV Crush. That's 2 words. And so you can go on and find this app, and right now, currently, it has a logo that says HD Movies, and it has this like king crown. Go ahead and download that app, and there, in fact, be able to go on and hopefully be able to see the Northman at some point, or be able to see a cluster of movies for absolutely free. So, now that I've gotten all that out of the way, the rigmarole of which that I always go on and say these things. So, I think it's about that time to just go into the teeing up of this film. So, the teeing up of the movie is, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be butchering these names, so I'm going to try my best to just go on and just kind of justify certain names to people. So, Amleth. Amleth, of course, is to be the son of King Warraven, who is Ethan Hawke in this movie. And Ethan Hawke is to come back from his horse trip and is to tell his queen, who is to be played by Nicole Kidman, that he thinks that it's time to hand over the reins to Amleth and to make him king. But it seems that Amleth has yet to really grow up yet. And so they need to figure out a way to kind of make him a man, because King Warraven wants to transition the crown to Amleth. So, because I guess a king had been Amleth's age when he was a young lad. And so we have King Warraven, who is to be killed, and Amleth is to sneak away. And this is the very cryptic part of this movie, but I'm just kind of teeing it up to get people possibly interested in this film, and then we'll get into the full-on spoilers. So, Amleth is to sneak away, and he is to seek, or want to seek, revenge, when he is to, of course, become a warrior, and is to want to settle scores. So, Amleth is rowing his way, and this is AD 895. And so Amleth is to want to come back and avenge his father, save his mother, and kill Fajolnir. And so Amleth is to go on, and years have passed, and we have Amleth, who is to be now this guy who is ransacking town to town, and is to finally be able to have an opportunity to transition to get to find the man who was to have taken down his father, and slowly but surely, through a number of witches and a number of spiritual things and a number of just all this kind of jazz and sword finding and all this stuff, go on and have Amleth get his revenge, and possibly go on and get back his kingdom, let's just say. So, because I'm leaving it very vague. Is he going to? Is he not going to? Will it be possible? We'll find out. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into spoilers about this one. So let's go into that double 5. I think it's about that time to just say that it is about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this movie. So we have Amleth, who is to tell Queen Gudrun that King Warraven is making his way back home within these horses. So King Warraven is to meet up with his queen and tell her, like, yeah, I think my enemies like have taken too much of my liver, and I think I need to go on and pass the torch to Amleth now. And we have the queen that's saying, like, well, I don't think he's ready yet. And the king is like, well, like, because he hasn't really seen, like he hasn't really seen, like, the dark side of things. And so we need to go on and, like, we need to show him. So King Warraven and Amleth are going on, and at some point having Hymir the Fool. Hymir the Fool, who is Willem Dafoe in this movie, is to go on and do this bizarre ritual where both Amleth and Warraven are both dogs. And I'm like, what? They're lapping up food from dishes like dogs, and they're hallucinating. And so Amleth is to all of a sudden touch his father's chest and see the long lineage of a number of different kings through his chest, weirdly, and it'll all lead to Amleth as the next king. And so after Amleth and King Warraven are to go off and do this whole ritual thing, right after that, all of a sudden, King Warraven is to see that there is a number of enemies starting to surround him, and Amleth is running off and trying to, like, sneak away behind this rock, and King Warraven is to get outnumbered. I'm like, why is it that a king is just walking around by himself? But come to find out, we have it to where King Warraven's brother is to go on and kill him himself. Fajolnir, the Brotherless. I'm probably going to call him the Brotherless so I don't have to consistently trip over this person's name every single time I pronounce it. So, the Brotherless is to go on and stab into King Warraven, and then is to start to go on and start to ransack this town and so on and so forth, kind of turn things around because now he owns this kingdom, because he is to basically keep what he kills because he's the next in line. So we have it where Umleth is hiding out in this little house, this little hiding spot, and all of a sudden we go on and are to see a guy named Finner, or Finner, or Finner. I'm gonna go with Finner, who is to kind of go on and want to grab Amleth, and Amleth goes and bites this guy's nose off, and Finner is to make up this story to the brotherless and mention him. It's like, well, hey, like, Amleth is to go on and drown into the waters, and he is dead, and instead we have it where Amleth is to take this boat and is to be rowing away, mentioning that he will avenge his father and save his mother and kill Fjolnir, and he is to consistently keep rowing and repeating that over and over, as if this is like the Game of Thrones, where we had the one Stark girl who was going on and rattling off all these names. It's kind of like the same thing where she's just like this, that, and like all the people that eventually she at some point wants dead. I was trying to think of the name because I'm like, Game of Thrones. Yeah, there it is. So, Amleth, we have it where now like several years have passed, and Amleth is to now be with these berserkers. And before they go on and burn up this town and tear through people, and I mean literally tear through people, like take chunks out of them, Amleth and all of these berserkers are going on and having this ritual that they're like around this fire and they're like getting all riled up and motivated, like, yeah, nah, nah. And they're howling at the moon because we just have a number of times where people just have to howl for whatever reason. And so Amleth wearing this like kind of wolf skin is like, all right, like let's go out there and let's take down this town. So we go on, we easily have all these berserkers just make their way through this town, burning down certain buildings. And so we have this berserker priest that turns to Amleth and is to mention, it's like, well, hey, like, it's great that we were to go on and like get a guy like you for the berserkers and stuff like that. So Amleth, who is to realize that he is so close to the man who is to have killed his father, now Amleth here is to want to decide to finally switch things up. That he only went with these people to then transition to where he can go on and try to kill off the brotherless. So Amleth is to go on and put on a different set of clothes, is to cut his hair, is to take this necklace and is to break it off. And so Amleth is to go on this boat with all these slaves and is to hope that no one would recognize him. And we have it to where Olga of the birch forest is to mention to Amleth, it's like, well, hey, like, why are you going along with us? Because she knows good and well that this guy is to not belong here. And so Amleth is just to kind of continue on, and immediately Amleth and Olga are like, it's like love at first sight. We have these people that are consistently to be with one another and talk to one another and have dialogue and discussions, to where it just eventually leads them both to go on and fall in love with one another. And Amleth is mentioning to Olga that at some point he's going to get the revenge on the man who had killed his father. So Amleth is to go on, and nobody, when eventually he makes it to the brotherless or anyone like the queen or anybody, is to of course recognize Amleth because it's been a number of years. And so the only way for Amleth to eventually go on and have these people recognize him is by telling him who he is. Because nobody knows. It's like, well, yeah, like, really, you've, like, changed to a completely different actor now. So, Amleth is to go on and, like, play up to be this slave and is doing all these, like, certain kind of chores, dropping off hay, uh, doing all this heavy lifting, and just kind of biding his time. So, Amleth is to go to have, I think, Thor, Theor, the Proud, the brotherless son, is to go to Amleth and say, like, hey, like, you can fight, can you? And Amleth is like, sure. So come to find out, Amleth is just going with these people, and come to find out they're just going on to do this game of sorts. And a number of people are just watching on as these guys are to basically pummel themselves and play this like ball and stick like game. It's not much of sticks, it's more like bones, but still, you get the point. So it's kind of like rugby, but it's also kind of like cricket. Like there's a lot of so the whole idea of the game is we have these guys who are to go on and have this ball, and they're all fighting for it, so that way they can have this ball and hit it with this stick. And so this ball needs to smack into this pole, and that's a score. And so it seems that Amleth's, like, other team that he's fighting against is doing real well, but more and more numbers just start to dwindle because everybody's just beating one another up, just beating them to a pulp. And so all of a sudden we have another one of the brotherless's sons who decides that he wants to get on the fun, and he wants to go on and play and grab this ball to try to score, to try to even things up. And while Amleth is to notice that this guy is still, like, not realizing who this kid is and is just seeing somebody with this ball, is to want to go on and hurt this kid, and Amleth is to just beat this guy to a bloody pulp and, like, bash his head onto the ground. And so Goodrun and Nicole Kidman and the brotherless are to check on the son, and it seems like he was just kind of knocked out. And when he wakes up, he's like, well, did we win? So we go on, and because of what Amleth had done, it seems that they, of course, are to take what he had did for them, and he wants to award Amleth with being able to be much more of a leader, and is to possibly go and have Olga as his woman. And because, like, Olga is to go on and realize that she is to just be made to be tossed around, and Olga is to get to the point where she's bleeding, and so no guy, I guess, wants that. And so now we just have it where, like, considering, like, Olga is to be the way she is, like, the only one that she's really gonna end up being with is Amleth here. Because they're like, well, we know you're eyeing her, and it seems like you keep going on and talking to her anyways, so you might as well just go on and just be with her anyways. So Olga and Amleth are to finally keep sleeping with one another and being with one another relationship wise, because they're like, okay, so since we can finally go on. And Amleth is to now, like, earn these guys' trust. So he's like, well, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. So Amleth, when he was to be berserker, to change to want to become a slave, was to speak to a seeress, and the seeress had these kind of beads all over on her head, and she was uh, going on and talking, of course, about Amleth's life and how like he needs to go on and change and seek vengeance and everything like that. And so that's when Amleth is decided to stop being a berserker and start being a person who's going to go on and get revenge from his father. And then when Amleth is to now want to go on and take down these people who had wronged his father, he is to speak to this he witch who is to have this head, and the he witch and the head are convincing Amleth to go and find this sword, and this sword will be able to tear through anybody. And so Amleth is to go and find this sword with this kind of skeleton armored guy. And come to find out, Amleth has to go on and fight this skeleton soldier, and he is to go on and figure out that he just needs to kind of bash this skeleton into the hole where the moonlight is to be hitting, so this thing will cripple down, and Amleth has the opportunity to chop this thing's head off and shove it in its butt. And so Amleth, after beating the skeleton, is to then turn back around to the throne where this skeleton was to sit, and then Amleth was, I guess, worthy enough to then take this sword. And so Amleth is to now go on and slowly but surely seek his revenge, but he's kind of going on and like he's building up to it. So Amleth is to go on and have this hay being delivered, and is to be with this priest. And so Amleth kills the priest, and then slowly but surely starts working around to having Amleth like being like positioned on this guard duty, where he's having this stick as this like guard duty. And we have this one guy who's going on and who's eating this food, and he's like, ha ha ha, like, you're not going to eat tonight. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, great, because I didn't want to. Because every single one of the people who is to eat this food is to all get sick. And so the brotherless is to now be like, oh my god, like, what kind of witchcraft is this? As everyone is starting to get sick, what is going on here? And so the queen is trying to convince the brotherless that it's nothing of anything magical, that there's something else that has to be going on here. So we continue to have Amleth, who just kills and murders people one by one, and is to go on and put a sword through the nose of the guy who is to be called Finner the Nose Stub. So because now he's like, well, hey, I took your, I bit off your nose before, but now I've come to, like, seek the rest of you. So we have Amleth, who is to stab into, of course, the brotherless's oldest son, and is to be able to talk to the queen and the good one, who is Nicole Kidman. And Nicole Kidman is to mention that she had never loved King Warraven that really she was a slave, and for some reason or another, King Raven was to take a liking to the queen, and she never really loved him, and she never really wanted this son, and the queen always loved the brotherless, and the brotherless felt the same. And so that's how the queen could go on and tell the brotherless to go on and kill King Warraven so she could finally be free. And we have it where Amleth is to just be in utter agony because of all the things that his mother is telling him, and is to just want to go on and finally at some point kill his own mother by stabbing her into the heart, because like he didn't want to kill her then, but he'll go back and kill her later because the queen has come at him with his sword and just start hitting him and hitting him and hitting him, and Amleth just to defend himself is to stab into his own mother, or otherwise he would die, as well as going on and having the queen's youngest son stab into his back, and Amleth is to drop this kid, and when this kid drops, I guess he ends up getting like accidentally killed in the process. So, but what happens in between the first time that Amleth is to re-meet up with the queen, and then Amleth is to have to kill the queen, we have Amleth who runs off with Olga to make her way to possibly have them both run off together. And Olga is to mention that she is to be pregnant with children. And we have Amleth who's like, well, yeah, like I touched you and I could figure that out, that you're gonna have two kids, and like those will be the kings, like those will be the kings of and I can tell. And it's like, wait a minute, how can Olga go on and just tell anybody, well, hey, like my kids are the kings, so I don't trust that whatsoever. So but Amleth is to realize that he just can't go on and like turn tail and run here, even though he can't kill his own mother. He has to go back and seek his revenge, or it's going to haunt him. So Amleth is to go on and go back and kill his own mother, and I guess his youngest brother in some ways, because it came from technically the queen. So now we have the brotherless who is to come in and realize now his wife and his son are dead. And so now the brotherless is to tell Amleth to meet him at at hell. It's to basically go on and meet him at the gates of hell, which is just this like volcano. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, what? Like, so are both of them gonna have to die and then slug it out? And then I was like, oh, this is an actual place. So we have both Amleth and we have both brotherless, and we already have a moment weirdly where Olga was to save Amleth when he was to, like, right after he was to go on and not kill his mother, but kill the Proud, the brotherless's oldest son. Amleth is to mention who he is, and is to mention that he has the brotherless's son's heart, and they had a whole ritual about his funeral and everything like that. So Amleth is to have been beaten and tortured and everything like that, but somehow or another these crows were to break his bounds and have Olga gather Omelette to run off together, but then Omelette just runs on back. So now that I've covered all of that stuff, there's a whole lot of that goes on in this movie. And so I'm sorry if I'm not doing it in perfect sequence and we're just kind of like coming back to things, but there's a whole lot of stuff that I guess I didn't go into, but I don't think it like hugely matters, but like either way, it's covered, I said it, and there we are. So at the end of this, we have Omelette and we have the Brotherless. We're duking it out, and this has got to be like the most best part about this movie, like the visuals of it. These two men who are just kind of like nah, like they're both like aggressive. They're both upset about like all the people that they have lost at this point, and so we have both of these characters that are swinging, and we have it at one point where it seems that Omelette is going to like die here or be defeated. And we're thinking like, oh, like seriously, this is how it's going to end with all this guy getting all this revenge but not getting the one guy that he needed to. And I was thinking like, don't tell me this is going to lose. Like this is going to be like where he loses, where Omelette loses. And come to find out, no. We have it where Omelette is to chomp off the head of the Brotherless, but the Brotherless is to also stab into Omelette's chest. And he is to drop and he is to die. And so really like the real end of this would really just be like these characters going on and going to their afterlife and dying off. And so like that would be like the end of the story of Omelette is to go on and have Olga have kids, and Omelette is to seek his revenge. So that seems to be what the story really is. So with that said, I think I'm just going to get out of here. Hopefully in a roundabout way I went into all this, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of goofy things, but there's just a lot of things. So like it was surprising because I thought like, man, if this is going to be like a long stretch of a thing, I wouldn't be surprised. But luckily I got it in a decent amount of time. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. So with that said, goodbye everybody. Goodbye everybody. If anything, Raven or War Raven was to be consistently pelted with arrows, and then he was to go down, and then the Brotherhood was to give the crushing blow. But I think other than that, I think everything else is covered. I think I'm okay with it. Really, if I would have gone on and tried to do this, more than likely I would have gone on and been even more like off with all the things, because there's just a lot of stuff to just pull apart from this one. So with that said, just slivers of good things, but a lot of it is just like, seriously, I have to go through this. I have to watch this thing. I have to like hear this goofy dialogue of whatever. Like just kind of building up that this character needs to be driven or to be motivated to like, no, you have to go on. You have to seek this revenge. You have to have this this unique sword that is to go on and start decking people and so on and so forth. This sword that is as strong as a dragon and all of this stuff. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go on and get out of here. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.